Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Ryman, your broker builder. And today I have a special guest coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He is an entrepreneur, consultant, author, podcaster, and influencer, man of many hats. He is currently serving as president, CEO of the Pavement Group, where they offer full service pavement installation, maintenance, and repair solutions to residential and commercial clients. After garnering enough experience in the paving industry as a contractor, he wanted to help others who are starting out in the industry. His determination to equip newcomers with the knowledge, training, and guidance they need to succeed, something he had to learn the hard way, motivated him to set the foundation for Top Contractor School, which continues to grow every single day. He's owner of Lead Revenue, where he brings a digital playbook that is unparalleled. They know what it takes to scale business digitally, regardless of whatever industry you're in. He started hosting a podcast called the Perspective Podcast, where he discusses a wide range of topics, including fatherhood, business, entrepreneurship, and the importance of having the right perspective in one's personal and professional life. Brian Hess, heck of an intro. Welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today, brother?
Man, that's as detailed as I've ever gotten one, brother. I appreciate that, dude. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to run through. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, man. And it's great to spend some time getting to know each other here.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking a while before the show. We should just hit the record button before the show, but we probably would have had a good hour of content. But no, I'm happy to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on this show. You're doing a lot of great things in the construction industry, and we're going to dive into that today. So I always get started with, who is Brian Hess?
Yeah, it's always a complicated question to answer, right? The easy parts are, man of God, husband, I have a beautiful wife that I've been with since 2010. Just an incredible life. I have 4 children, 8, 6. One just turned 4, and one's almost 2. He's coming up here in December. Will be 2, but 1 for now. Again, like you said, entrepreneur. The best thing that I can say, man, and it hasn't always been this way in my life, but I genuinely wake up every day excited to get to do what I do and get to do it with the people that I do it with. It doesn't mean every day is easy, but it means, that getting the opportunity to kind of live out the dreams that you had as a kid and the dreams that you continue to grow with as an adult, that is something special. And you mentioned it before, but one of my missions in life is to help as many people be able to realize that that's possible as I can. But yeah, man, it's great to get to do what I do every day, to have multiple different things that I get to interact with. It's always kind of been in my personality to be that way. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, real close to the West Virginia border, from one of the poorest counties in Pennsylvania. So I've seen, kind of what that looks like all the way through to where I am today. So I'm able to connect with a lot of people and understand, kind of where anybody is on their journey, which is a blessing in itself. So getting to be able to serve people with that knowledge and experience has also been a huge blessing in my life. So that's the long and short of it, man. Hope that helps.
It definitely helps. And I can see with you just hear with what you're saying that, you're all about service. You're all about helping people, not just your clients, but also helping other contractors too succeed. Because obviously it starts with the contractor, and we need to learn how to deal with our clients better. We need to get better at service. We're in a service business to where, we're serving them. We're building, whether we're building them a house, paving a road or our parking lot, or building a commercial building. It is all about service too. And you're teaching that, but you're doing it through so many different platforms too, which I give you a lot of credit for all the things you got going on, not only running a multi-million-dollar company in the Pavement Group that you started, but also now you're running Top Contractor School. So let's start with the Pavement Group. Why did that start? How'd you get there? Why that form of construction over other different avenues?
Yeah. So interesting story, man. So I was working in corporate America. I was working for Verizon Wireless, and had a great career. I was worked my way up through the business channel to kind of run Western Pennsylvania. So I was running a sales team that sold to small businesses. And you know how it works in corporate. If you want to get promoted, and I was 28, 29 years old, I want to get promoted, I want to keep moving up. The opportunities are, generally speaking, in different cities, right? You have to be relocatable to be able to move up quickly. And so the opportunities that I had at that particular moment were in California and then in South Florida. And so I chose the one in South Florida because of, quite frankly, home prices and distance to get home back to Pittsburgh. And so I relocated down to South Florida, and the very first customer that I met with was a small business. When you're selling to small businesses, construction companies are really the mass majority of the opportunity that's in that space. And so the very first appointment that I was taken on with one of my sales managers out of Miami was with a construction company in Miami that we had trouble with. Like, we owed them a lot of back bill credits. And so at the end of that meeting, that guy happened to be from Pittsburgh originally. And at the end of that meeting, he literally said to me, "Man, you need to quit your job and come work for me." And I was like, "Man, you're crazy. Like, I got a good gig. I'm 30 years old, killing it in corporate America by most people's definitions. No chance." Right. And so when I declined his job offer, he offered for me to come to dinner with his family for that Friday night. And so I was, living in a hotel. I'm like, a warm cooked meal, some people I could get to know or get to meet, why not? So I ended up driving to this guy's house. And as I'm driving to his house, now his office was in a bad neighborhood in Miami. Right. And I'm driving to his house, and I'm like, dude, this guy lives in a pretty incredible neighborhood. Like, maybe I'm being a little foolish here, not being open to what this guy's talking to me about. So I got to his house, and I'd driven past this massive house on the way to his house. And I said, "Man, who lives in the house on the corner? The big one." He's like, "Oh, that's that rapper Ludacris." And so I'm like, dude, this guy lives in a pretty nice neighborhood. This is a far cry from where I was in his office. Maybe I should be open to this. And so 1 year to the day later, after I relocated to South Florida, I took a position with that guy's company. And that's really how I got started in the construction space, was taking a leap from selling technology to going into an industry that, I grew up around construction, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. But I knew sales, I knew marketing, and I knew business. And so I took those skills and jumped 2 feet into, running a paving company that had 5 offices across the state of Florida.
And see, that's amazing too, let's start there, how important having kind of a sales or being able to sell is, with anybody. So if you can't sell, you're probably not going to be successful with running a business too, because you got to sell that business. So, I mean, you having that sales background helped you, and plus doing it with the learning how to kind of meet with people and go through that I sold cars at one time, so that helped me tremendously with a lot of aspects in what I do now, believe it or not, in the home building world, as far as talking to people, calling people. I've told this story before too, as far as calling people, because most people don't want to do it. But I remember my sales manager came up, slapped a list on my desk and said, "Pick up the phone and call that whole list." And I sat there, I'm like, okay. And he stood over my shoulder and he said, "You going to call him?" And I was like, "With you here?" And he goes, "Yeah, call him." So that right there was one of those forced moments where and it helped though. It helped with a lot of getting over that hump with certain things. And I'm sure you and your journey was the same way in a lot of ways. But so you start getting into the pavement business. How did the pavement group get formed? Let's go there. How did you start with that and to get to where you're at now?
Yeah. So, being the son of a steel worker, kind of growing up, not in an entrepreneurial family, kind of the normal path, man, was to go get a job, be successful, buy a house, get a wife, have some kids, retire. That's the common kind of path for people that, don't know any different. Like, I didn't know any entrepreneurs really. There was, my uncle and my family had a construction company, so I was familiar with that. I knew that he had his own company and it was in construction, but for the most part, that was viewed as risky. in my family, right? So I kind of always was drawn to that safety of this, the appearance of safety of having a job, right? And so as I was working for this guy, I started to see that we were doing work outside of Florida through subcontractors. We were managing projects for large retailers and things like that. And I just kind of noticed, like, man, we're doing this out of state. We're making, decent money managing these projects because there's value in that to the client. What would stop me from being able to do that myself? So that was like the first thought that I ever had of, like, man, I think I could do this. I was selling a significant amount of work myself. All the meetings that I had were successful. My close rate was exceptionally high, meeting with these large retailers or big portfolio type clients that we do business with now at the Pavement Group. So I started thinking to myself, maybe this is an opportunity. And as things, were kind of, not going so well at that company, from the standpoint of how I saw, that a culture should be, or a company should be, it just really wasn't in alignment, and that was, it was a 40-something-year-old company at the time. So I was like, kind of in that spot where I knew that wasn't going to be a significant change there. So the idea of that being a potential solution kind of became clearer and clearer. So with that said, when I first took the leap, it was not too successful. The companies, the partnerships that I formed were not successful. The companies were always pretty successful. So I took a couple shots at partnering with people that didn't work out. I actually ended up back selling technology, and then, kind of starting to open a business on the side. I ended up, kind of doing some consulting, some short-term work with a company out of Wisconsin, and that company ended up getting sold. So now I'm kind of an employee again, and that company's being sold. And then there's going to be a roll up of all these different companies. So again, man, I'm faced with, all right, do I take the safe route?
Yeah.
Or do I take the jump? And I knew in that moment, man, like, it's either now or never, right? I'm either going to take this leap and go into entrepreneurship and start this and give it a shot, or I'm just going to go this direction and work for somebody forever. And there was just that fire in my gut, man, that was like, if you don't do this, you're never going to know. And so I took the leap, man, and we started the Pavement Group just over 3 years ago. So March 28th of 2018. And right at the same time, man, I had started Top Contractor School basically just before that, trying to help people in the industry. And the rest is history, man. We have been growing just unbelievable amounts year over year. This year has been more incredible than what I could ever imagine. Like, it's hectic in all of construction, but for us, we're multiplying in numbers that are literally unbelievable when I look at them. It's kind of what I always had in my head, but when it happens, it's still a little shocking. And that's it, man. So the journey was just kind of that point of pivot. Like, what do I do? And dude, I was scared to death, man. Yeah. I remember standing in my entryway of my house that I live in now, and my dad says to me, like, man, you got 3 kids and your wife stays at home with the kids. Like, what if this doesn't work? And I said, well, I guess we'll be having that conversation in a different house.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we may not be in this house having that conversation, but I was just so sold on the fact that, I thought I could do it, and I thought what I had in my mind as the way that we do business at the Pavement Group today was a real pivot and a real solution in the construction space that wasn't existing at the time. There's a lot of similarities to what we do, but there's some very unique differences. And those things are really what I believe the future of construction is. And that is kind of what drove me to take that leap and feel comfortable doing it.
It's amazing right there. I got to give you a lot of credit for it, because you did take that leap, and not a lot of people are willing to do it in business. I mean, we're both in our taste syndicate too, and you hear about it all the time, how people just aren't willing to take it because they're scared. But once you do it and kind of just put all your eggs in that basket and just, grind too, that you get to where you're at, and you got there in such a short period of time. I mean, 3 years is nothing too. I mean, I can only imagine, 5-10 years from now where you're at. You'll be paving the whole country. So, maybe paving around the world, but it's just, and then plus Top Contractor School, before I get into that and what you're doing with that, man, I appreciate that a lot too. You helping contractors get better at what they're doing, because that's what this show's about. This show is more directed towards obviously the clients, helping them, showing them what to look for in these industries too. But there's a lot of contractors that listen to this show, and everybody that I've had on this show too, whether you're a contractor, mortgage professional, realtor, whatever, they all have that same mindset of, we just want to do good. We want to serve the customer better than anybody else, and we want to help other people with how we do things too. So appreciate everything you said there as well. I want to go stick with the pavement group for now, just real quick, and then we'll hop into Top Contractor School and what you're doing there. There was something I got on your website which kind of caught my eye. You say as president CEO of the company, you take great pride in the team's performance and dedication to provide top rate quality solutions using advanced techniques and modern equipment. Talk about this a little bit more, because you brushed on how you're doing things differently with your business compared to your competition. So let's talk about that and how you're doing it better.
Yeah, it's really, I think in business a lot of times, man, we talk about differentiation, and it's a word that's thrown around a lot, but I don't really think that people have a clear definition of what that really is, right? What is real differentiation? Because to the point there, it's like, if I can buy the same piece of equipment that you have purchased, Bill, it's not differentiation, right?
Yeah.
I can have a nice piece of equipment, but if somebody else can purchase it, it's not true differentiation. And so for me, that background in technology, coming into this business, I have always looked to technology as a solution of how to solve people's problems, right? Because I believe that technology has this undeniable ability to create transparency like nothing else can, and to really create a collaborative experience for the client. So, whether you're building homes or paving parking lots, people want to be part of that process. And the more that you can bring them into the process and have a great customer journey, customer experience, the more satisfied your customers are going to be, the less of them you're going to lose to other people, because they can't necessarily get that same experience somewhere else. And so that's what we've created, man, as a technology-driven process. From the time you enter your information on our website, or the first time that we reach out to you, trying to do business with you because you're on a list of people that we really want to do business with, from that point all the way through invoice, we create a transparent process that people can actually be a part of, right? Where they can see the work being completed. They can see us assessing their parking lot and creating an inventory of the issues that exist on that parking lot, so that they can understand what actually needs to be done. And if they're a portfolio client where they have, we have customers in Florida that have sites in Tampa, Naples, right, all over the state, and they don't have the ability to go look at those parking lots and actually see what's wrong with them. So we have the ability to not only go look at those parking lots, but collect that data and be able to deliver it to them in a way that, I could have the worst parking lot in the world in this side of the state at a store location that's not doing well in revenue, and have a parking lot that's not quite as bad, but in a high revenue location over here. Well, if I don't have the ability to see seamlessly all of that data and be able to create those points of decision of how are we actually going to spend the budget money that we have, then you're not actually getting the best value for your dollar with a paving company, right? Because anybody can go out and look at a parking lot and say, well, Bill, your parking lot's not in great shape, we should repave it. But the question is that actually the right decision based on the number of properties somebody manages or owns, based on the revenue for those locations, if it's a retail or a hotel or a restaurant or something like that? So we've created a technology backbone that allows customers to be able to see all of that, to be able to create an inventory of their issues that they have visibility into, that allows them to make decisions based on facts and data. And that's one of the things that we say is, we want you to make decisions based on facts and data, not based on the opinions of 3 different contractors that are looking at your property, telling you how to fix it. Because, not saying those contractors are wrong, but they're wrong in the sense that they don't know what's going on all the other properties, right? And so they could be telling you how to fix this one, but it may not be the best decision for your entire budget. So that is just some of the ways that we do it differently. From the standpoint of project management, we have a portal online that as we're completing our clients' projects, they can see every step of the way up to the minute what's going on their property. Schedule changes, weather issues, all those kinds of things are up to the minute. And our customers have visibility into that process. So we call it joint control of the process. We want the customer in the boat with us, and we feel like that's what makes it most successful.
That's so important what you're doing, and that's in any kind of construction business is bring them into the process. Let's go back to that, because not a lot of, and I'm speaking on the custom home end too. We try and bring customers in as much as we possibly can, and keep them in the loop of what's going on too. Now you have certain customers that kind of go way above, where they should be. And I'll ask you about that question too, because maybe you can be a guide to me on that now that you're running the Contractor School. I got a situation with a customer, but we'll get into that in a second. But having them and connecting them to your process, it helps not only streamline the process and make everybody on the same page, helps with communication, keeps everybody happy because they're seeing what's going on. And then if there is an issue, they see why it happened. You're taking care of a lot of headaches just by doing that. And unfortunately, there isn't a lot of companies that are doing that. They just kind of do the work. That's it. Give me a check. I'm out. You're doing it differently. And I can appreciate that. And we're personally doing the same thing. We have, construction software we use. We try and keep them in the loop. We have everything on email. We're constantly communicating because you have to with these custom homes because there's so much detail in them. I currently have a client, though, that the home is not really moving very fast because that client wants a sample for every single little detail you can imagine. So long story short, we gave into a few samples and kept doing it. And then you give an inch, they take a mile. So now we're at the point where we can't keep doing, sending them these samples and so on. And just because it's costing us money to mail them, on top of it's just getting way, way overboard. So as far as you're, bringing them into the process, what do you do if they, you give them an inch, they take a mile? What do you do if they over go into your process and get a little out of hand? What are you doing to solve that?
Yeah, I think, and this is something I think we all face, man, far more frequently than what we even realize, right?
Yeah,
many of the times we're able to resolve it without
it was the perfect transition into my question for you too.
Yeah. And so I think, there's a term that I've started using recently that I think is really important for people that are running companies or any of us that are in sales or in leadership. And it's called how you frame your relationship. Right. Mm-hmm. So how is that relationship framed? Like you and I are meeting officially for the first time on this podcast. It's actually a great frame, right? As opposed to, I meet you in passing in a hotel, quick 2-second conversation, doesn't have the same impact. Right. And so sometimes what happens with customers is and it sounds like, sometimes we don't realize that we're off on the frame in the beginning, right? Like we're off in the way that they view us because they're viewing your company as somebody that's willing to do whatever they ask. Mm-hmm. And the reality is you're willing to do whatever they ask within reason. Yeah. And so, right. And what is beneficial to the process to make them a happy customer, but at the same time, having the understanding that we have a business that we have to run and that these things actually create issues for them, not just for the company. Right. And so one of the things that I say about our, kind of joint control of that process is that whatever is good for the customer, whatever is good for us, those things go hand in hand, right? Most of the time it's a win-win. Like if it's good for us, it's usually good for the customer as well, or there's a way to find the win-win. And so what I always suggest to my team is like, you just have to take a pause and have a thought out reframing of the relationship. And the first thing I would do is take ownership of the fact that, you kind of caved into something that you don't typically do, and actually explain to them why you don't typically do it, right? Because again, a customer, a lot of times we assume that customers, kind of know things that they don't know. Mm-hmm. And, we leave it to chance as to whether or not they actually understand something. And we face it all the time, man, because construction is not something that most people are familiar with, right? And so they only do it a handful of times in their life. They don't understand the process. They've got their own busy life, or in our case, we're working with facility managers that are juggling a million different things. And so what we try to do is literally just kind of reframe that relationship through a real conversation about why this is a challenge and what the potential of that issue becomes down the road, right? Mm-hmm. This is what could happen if we continue down this path of, it's going to take too long. And be transparent, man, and talk to them about the financial impact to your company of doing it that way, and the fact that you actually made an exception because you wanted to make them happy, but kind of how all that looks. And so I think what generally happens, man, and sometimes there's an exception to everything. Sometimes customers are extremely unreasonable, but that's also valuable information to know as well. But when you reframe it, you're going to see, like, are they understanding of what you're saying or not? Or are they just going to be unreasonable for the rest of the project? And those are both very valuable pieces of information to know how to handle things going forward. So just completely reframing it, almost like, let's not start from scratch because we're already into the process, but let's start from scratch from here and understand each other better.
I love that. Yeah, because you do, and that's the thing, like you first said there, a lot of contractors kind of assume that the client knows what they're thinking, without them even having that conversation with them too. And that's a problem, because that goes back to communication, that goes back to listening to the client, but mostly communicating, setting that expectation from the beginning, which I've talked about a million times with contractors on this show. And we all face it. I mean, I'm facing it now. Before we got on this podcast, I was dealing with it with the girl in our office. She told me, she's like, now they want samples for this, this, and this after I just sent them this, and they were approving it. This has been going on for 2 months. And I said, nope, that's it. Tell them no, tell them to call me. I'll have a discussion with them about what's going on. That's enough. We can't keep, and you have to put your foot down sometimes with clients too. And I know we kind of transitioned opposite of where we were, but it is an important topic, because there is a lot of contractors that listen to the show and people that are building a house, and they have to realize that there are these time frames the builder has. There are it's not that we're trying to rush the house and get it done, but we have other projects too, but everything moves in kind of an assembly line. We have a subcontractor on that house, we have to get them to the next house and so on. We want everything working so that they're happy. We close on time at the end. There's no issues towards the end of the project as well. So it's just getting that understanding. And I love what you said with the reframing of everything, because that is huge too. Sometimes you just have to reset the expectation.
Yeah. And I think it's a great way to look at it, man. And I think, another thing right now that we're actively communicating on a regular basis is, one day right now, with supply and demand being what it is, one day can make a huge difference in the amount of time it takes to get something, the amount of time it takes to move a project forward. You might have one item, right, that's missing on a list as a result of, these samples, or taking too long, or taking an extra couple of weeks that delay that project for a month. And that's real stuff right now. And it's again, I think that we sometimes are moving so fast in business, and most of the time things just go smoothly, so we don't deal with a lot of these one-offs. And I think it's also important, I just want to make this point before we move on here, is it is not a bad thing to embrace conflict with a customer, as long as you're coming from a place of transparency and honesty, and explaining everything to them in a way that's from both sides, right? Not just, hey, this is going to take our company a long time, and here's the negative financial impact, but what is the impact on the customer too? Because it's never just us that is impacted. It's also the entire project, the timeline, what it looks like, just everything is impacted by these decisions. And so kind of taking that 360-degree perspective and delivering it to them, and then embracing the conversation that comes along with it and saying, taking the ownership, like, hey, we didn't do a good enough job explaining this, but I'm going to try to do a better job right now explaining kind of how all this works. And at the end of it, if you're successful, which many times you will be, that relationship is entirely reframed. And the way that they even interact with your staff will be different because they have a better understanding.
Yeah, and it's dropping your ego as the contractor too. That's plain and simple. What you just said is just drop your ego and actually accept that, okay, I should have did this at the beginning. I didn't do it. So here's what's going to happen next with the process. And here's how we're going to move forward to get your project done. You're going to be happy at the end, because let's face it, there may be bumps in the road, but every single house that we have built, at the end, that customer is ecstatic. They are happy. They're happy to be ready to move in. They got a big smile on their face. They should. If they don't, and you're a builder and they're not smiling, you might want to check yourself, or call Brian here too. He'll definitely help you out big time, because I mean, it's so important. Obviously, the customer is always right. You want to transition towards that way and lean more towards that way, but sometimes they're wrong too, and you got to let them know. But you also have to know why. Like Brian said, that was awesome, man. Big time. So let's keep moving forward. I want to go into your top contractor school. Obviously, this has to do with everything you're doing business wise. So these are all kind of tied together with what you're doing in the pavement group. And due to time, I was going to ask you about your process with the pavement group and stuff, but I want to keep us moving here because I know you're a busy guy today and got a lot on your plate. So one thing you said learning to make the most of our strengths, overcome our weaknesses, and become the best versions of ourselves is not easy. However, to become successful at what we do so we can achieve all that we want, one must first become all they are, or all that they are. You know, I love this because when I read this, I was like, man, I got to talk about this with him. So let's just touch on this. What did you mean by that? And this is getting into your kind of coaching side. I got a lot of respect for you for what you're doing with running all these things and doing stuff. I mean, I thought I was crazy. I think you're crazier. So
I would agree, man. It's funny. I just said this last night on a call with a bunch of Arte brothers. I said, you know, I started both of these companies right around the same time. And at the time, I had no idea how crazy that was, right? Like, you know, it just seemed like a sensible thing. And so, you know, to go back to, you know, kind of the purpose of Top Contractor School in the first place was, you know, I saw all of these contractors across the country. And so when I came into the industry and I knew nothing about it, I brought a lot of people with me from corporate America that ended up being very successful salespeople in the pavement industry. And so as I was doing that, as I was being trained, I kind of documented all these things that I was learning. And I created, you know, kind of a training manual that explained somebody that came from outside the industry into the industry, you know, what it took to kind of be successful. How do you learn, you know, about asphalt and how it works and how it drains and how, you know, just all the different things that you have to learn to be able to have that conversation. So I created that manual. And people started seeing how successful our salespeople were. And they started reaching out to me, asking me questions about how are you taking all these guys from outside the industry and making them successful? And, you know, they were after that book. But to go back to your question, I think that, you know, that book and what we teach and how we teach the techniques and all that kind of stuff, that is, you know, definitely a big piece of being successful in sales and being able to really solve customers' problems is what a salesperson does. But at the same time, there's another whole piece of it, whether you're a business owner or a salesperson, or you're just working for a company. And that comes down to mindset. And that is kind of what you're talking about here. Is like, you know, when you talk about becoming the best version of yourself, what does that actually look like, right? What is your real potential and how much of it have you tapped into? And when I think about that, man, I think that, you know, within Top Contractor School, obviously, you know, kind of what my intentions were with it versus what it has evolved into. While there's similarities, there's a lot of differences in things that I didn't realize would happen, but have happened from just taking a lot of action and getting a lot of people involved in our programs. And what has happened, man, is that it has created this community within the construction industry that I believe has been missing. I don't believe that there's really been a community like ours that isn't just receiving training or coaching or guidance, but really plugging into a group of people who genuinely want each other to win, who are genuinely sharing best practices. Because as you know, a lot of people in the construction industry, when I came in, nobody wanted to share anything with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, outside of my own company, I would call people because that's who I am, trying to network, trying to learn as much as I can. And people would just kind of shove me off or, just feed me a line of, what, and move on. And I'm like, this isn't right. Like, what do we have to lose, man? There's so much work out there. There's so much opportunity in the construction space. And I saw that kind of lacking in people's mindsets, right? This scarcity mindset, as we will refer to it today. And I thought, man, if we could create, something that helped people learn these things that I know to be successful, that would be incredible. And throughout that, my own journey of self-development being kind of wrapped into what we do at Top Contractor School, it's been massively impactful, and not just in a business sense, but, I've got people in the group that have come to me and said, like, Ben, I have 3 kids and I can tell the difference in my third child and their personality and the way that they see the world versus the other 2, as a result of the work that they've done on themselves and the realizations that they've had of their mindset and their goal setting and all of the different things that I honestly believe, man, and I'm not trying to be controversial here, but I just think most of the construction industry gets it wrong, in the sense of how they do business, how they don't collaborate on things. And honestly, man, many people talk about collaboration and they don't do any of it, right? They talk about the idea that it's a good idea. Maybe they know it's a good idea, but in all reality, they're not sharing. And so what we've been able to do at Top Contractor School is really pull back the curtain, open the playbook, create a playbook of many people who are dominating in the construction space, and continue to bring those ideas into a community that's able to share it and able to be successful from it. And, to be able to watch those people become successful, I just had a conversation with a guy who's been one of the longest clients that I've had in TCS. And like, their company was doing 2-point-something million 3 or 4 years ago, and now they're going to do 12 million. And the impact they're able to make and the charities they're able to support, and, the things that they're able to do around the world with the financial impact of that is just massive, man. So it's really an addiction for me, right? To be able to see people win. It's great to win yourself. It's incredible to watch other people win and to be able to do that together, right? And that is probably the best feeling of Top Contractor School in general, is just the community and how tight knit it's become, and how much people get excited to watch other people win. Even in cases where somebody might be going through a down quarter, a down month, and they're still so excited to see other people win. And that is, from a cultural standpoint, that's exactly what we're trying to build. And I think that goes in line with kind of what you were talking about there of like, being successful at what we do, man. It starts with being the best version of you. And are you showing up every day, regardless of how you feel, being the best version of you? Are you being the example to people? Are you as disciplined as you should be? Are you as encouraging and inspiring and motivating and educating your people? And all of those things tie into how we make people successful. And so for me, having a platform and a company to be able to help people do that, it's been one of the greatest things in my career is watching those people be able to take information from each other, information from our programs, and take it and implement it and have the impact that they've had is incredible.
Well, I think part of it too, because a lot of builders, I'm going from the custom home side, they don't like to share, how they've gotten their success, or how they've gotten to where they are, because it's some big secret or something too. And I know part of that's being old school too. I mean, my old man was like that. He's like, "Oh, don't show them that. Don't tell them that. They don't need to see that. They're gonna steal our." But nobody can do it like you. There's no other Brian Hess. There's no other Bill Ryman. There's no other. I mean, there's people that can try and mimic it, but they're not going to have. And that goes back to the mindset thing too. They're not going to have the same mindset as you and I to, just crush it and just keep on moving it and figuring it out and doing it, because everybody's made differently. And what you're doing is you're bringing a group of guys that are willing to help each other, which is rare in the construction industry, like you said. I mean, it's rare. Most contractors are quiet. They kind of keep to themselves. They have success or they don't, or they have a minimum just enough to get by. But you're creating a platform that's helping these contractors learn from others that are top professionals in their industry. So you either take it or you leave it. Do the same and it's going to help you, or don't do it. And then you're going to sit where you're at too. So, and I love that. And when I started this podcast too, at first I was like, I'm going to give out some of our secrets, this and that. Now I'm an open book. I mean, somebody can listen. They can listen to all my podcasts, figure out who RK Ryman Construction is, how I do what I do, how I sell, how I deal with my clients, and what makes us different and what makes us one of the top builders in the area. So it's crazy once you get by that and you just don't care how much business actually starts coming in, because you're giving that out and you're helping people along the way. You get more business too. People respect that.
It's the very best marketing you can do, man, is again, it goes back to transparency. And when you think about construction in general, if you were to go, and I've done this multiple times just to prove a point to people, but if you were to go out on Facebook and put a survey out that said, what is your opinion of contractors?
Yeah.
It would not be positive responses for the most part. And so how do you counteract that? Right. It's, I just did my podcast this morning on the truth about overcoming objections. Well, how do you beat the objection or the perception of people have of contractors before they even have it? Is you create a process that's opposite of what they think.
Yeah.
Opposite of what their perception is. And so as we act out these things that we're talking about right now by sharing, it just creates a different level of power, a different level of visibility, a different level of trust, a different level of transparency. And that leads to incredible marketing where people automatically trust your company. And I would argue that trust as a contractor is one of the number one things you should be pursuing, is that if people feel like they can trust you, they're willing to work through the rest of the details. But if they feel like you're hiding something from them, which, by the way, those contractors that don't want to share their tips are hiding something from people, then they're not going to have the same trust for you that they would have for somebody else. And it negatively impacts people's businesses. So that's our mission, man, is to try and by the way, we don't want people in Top Contractor School that don't have something to offer. If they're just going to be takers, we don't necessarily want those people in our programs. We want people who are going to be part of the community that truly elevate the real estate value of our community, right? And that is, ultimately the difference between us and most other communities that are out there in the construction space is like, we're not after everyone, man. We're after those people that genuinely believe what we believe, that share the same values, that want to contribute to others and contribute to making our industry better. And I think we're well on our way, man. We've got a pretty good little tribe of people, and it's growing day by day. As you mentioned earlier, there's more people reaching out and interested in what we're doing, because I think that everybody kind of feels that lacking in our industry. Right. Yeah. And so when they see like, hey, this group is trying to make a difference with it, it's like, let's check it out and see what it's all about. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
It's like you said, though, there is a lack of trust, big time in the contracting world too. It's just and I've faced it. I mean, we build a lot of second homes, and I got to deal with the people that they had a bad experience up north, and I can tell right off the bat by just that first initial conversation, the questions they ask, and how they go about it, and the pricing, and how they read contracts and so on. And I have to kind of figure out how to maneuver around the issues that they had before, because it only takes one bad experience that's going to put it and keep it in that person's mind. And it's basically, it turns into our job to make it feel like, building a house isn't that bad, or maybe I can renovate a house and not have all the headaches that I had before too, which is a big challenge for contractors, because a lot of these people, they did get screwed the first time. Maybe they took the lowest price, and I've gotten into that, how the lowest price isn't always the best price. Usually you're going to get screwed some way with that. Some people learn, some people don't, but I deal with a lot of clients now. They're willing to pay. They want to pay for a good quality experience, but it also goes back to like building that relationship with your clients, having that long-term relationship to where it's almost like a friendship. Those people can call you, and you can talk about their kids and their dogs, and maintaining those relationships like their family too. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the table with our customers as well. I mean, I shared it on my story yesterday. One of our customers that we're building for, she goes, by the way, I want to see Muggsy, my bulldog. She goes, I want to see Muggsy when I'm in town. I don't, the house is secondary. I got to see your dog, just building that
That's
friendship,
awesome,
and joking around and be able to do that. But I established that trust too through selections and stuff like that, giving them steering them towards the less expensive option, which most builders don't do that. They try and up them, especially on a cost plus margin. Not us. I said, hey, how about you go with these doors over these doors? It's going to save you $15,000, and these doors actually look better. They're the profile you're looking for, and the customer service through that specific brand is 10 times better too. So if there's ever an issue, they're there that week, versus an Anderson or a Windor who it's going to take them a while to get there. How about that? Wow. And it's just establishing those relationships too.
Yeah, one of those Arte syndicate values: do the right thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's true, man. Those things go a long way, man. And that's a person, when you say somebody wants to see your dog, like, what do you think the chances that person's going to refer you to one of their friends that might want to build a house? I mean, it's extremely high, and it's those daily deposits, man, of doing the right thing over and over and over again. And it's amazing. I call it compound interest, right? When you're making those deposits every day, the compound interest that comes from it. And you mentioned it earlier, we've been at it for 3 years, but the compound interest that has come from our ability to do this day by day and literally just win every day, doing things the right way, it has multiplied our ability to create success at a higher level and get the results that we're looking for by just being transparent, doing the right thing, steering, to your point, steering customers in the right direction. Dude, many of the assessments that we go out and do on people's parking lots, the contractor would tell them to pave it, and we tell them to seal coat it and crack seal it. It's like 1/10 of the price, but it's the right thing, and it's a lifetime relationship. We're not looking for, to do one job for a customer. We want all of their business. We want to become the trusted partner that they look to for anything pavement related that we can help them accomplish. And when we do that, business gets super, super easy. And I always say this one, man, business is as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. And the more transparent you are, the more upfront you are, the more you're willing to reframe relationships and embrace the conflict that comes along with that, gets a lot easier, man. It's a lot less emotional. It's a lot less dramatic. It's a lot less weight on your shoulders to do it. And that's, I really believe, man, that's the future of construction, is this whole, kind of partnership idea that we're talking about with the customers, is taking that to a whole new level, getting them involved in the process and creating visibility and transparency in it. And it just makes it easier all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Let's go into that a little bit more. And due to time too, I'm going to hop into some personal questions probably after this one, but how do you get by a customer that is so concerned about price rather than the quality or the final result or that relationship that we're talking about? Because price drives a lot. I mean, especially you deal with like the commercial world too, dealing with price and that a lot of people are fixed on it. maybe not as much in the custom home, but I deal with it too. I got a lot of people that say, hey, we're going to bid our project to you. Can I send you a set of plans and we'll bid it to you? And I always ask who else are you bidding? Because I know who's going to undercut me way low, and I won't even take the time to bid it. I tell them that straight up. I'm just upfront. Who are you bidding? Oh, well, this guy, this guy, this guy. Well, I'm not going to bid it. So how do we get around price? Because so many people are price driven. How do you get around that?
Yeah. And honestly, man, I think that, you're on the right track already. It's like, you're not going to convince everybody of value, and that is based on a million different things, from, down to how they were raised and how their parents talk to them about money, right? Like,
True.
people really, it comes down to their own perspective on money, and that transitioning into their perspective on price versus value, right? One of the things that we always, kind of include in our conversations around the idea of price, like let's take value out of it, is that, there's always a way, almost always, to get to a price. It really depends on, in our world, in the construction world, what does the scope of work look like that allows you to have that price? So for us, if we're paving, let's say we're doing 100,000 square feet of repairs on a distribution center parking lot for a retailer, and our price is 10% high. Well, there's a happy medium there. Like, we can't do that amount of work for the lower price, but what we can do is find a way to meet in the middle where, maybe we can adjust. Maybe we can look at some of the areas that might not need to be done. We can reduce the square footage of that and still be able to deliver the value product that you're looking for, right? The right job with the right scope, with the right, but maybe it's a lesser quantity. To your point, man, you can build a house that fits within somebody's budget. It may not be the high-end doors. It may not be every sink fixture that they want, but it's able to be able to fit into a budget. So I think it's about having that. And then going back, we keep saying the same word, but it's a transparent conversation about the cost of doing business. And I think that as we're more upfront about that, the more people actually accept it. And I think you're saying the same thing as I'm about to say, but a different way. But if it's not going to be a good fit, we just want to get to that as quickly as possible so that we're not wasting the customer's time or ours. But it really comes down to, again, how we frame that conversation of what are they really looking for? And the faster we figure out if that customer is open to the conversation of value versus price, some of them aren't, right? We have many customers over the years that have been value customers, for example. Then COVID happened and they became price customers.
Yeah.
Now they may eventually go back to value driven customers. And so we don't, we're not writing them off as a customer, but for this season, for this period of time, they're going to be a price driven because of their situation. It's really about open communication and having that dialogue and really figuring out what somebody's thought process is on money and value, right? And that helps us really be able to diagnose what kind of person we're talking to. And again, to your point, is it a good fit? Because it's not a bad thing to tell somebody you won't bid their project. It's, again, how you embrace that conflict, how you deliver the message, and how you explain it. And people are understanding for the most part.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, it really is, everything is communication. And I feel like a broken record on this podcast because I say that so many times: communication and being upfront and how we communicate and setting the expectation too. But another huge part too, which I brushed on a little bit, is listening to the client and hearing what their wants and needs are off the bat too, so you can assess and figure out, okay, am I able to do this? Because, and going back to what I said too, if you're in the bidding process, and I've learned it, we all want every job. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you want every job. I see another builder sign in a lot, and I still cringe to this day. You're driving down the road and it's like, he got that job, and why didn't that person come to me? And then this is how my mind thinks too. I'm like, okay, I never talked to that person. Why didn't they think of me? So what do I need to do to get in front of them? I got to figure this out. too. So, that's how my mind kind of processes seeing a different builder sign. And what do we need to do? Do we need a model? Do we need to get a better internet presence? Do we need to do this too? So this is going to go
The
into,
second one's definitely true.
yeah, which I've made. Yeah, I've been working hard on video and everything too, which I was going to go into you with, because you have your lead revenue business. Obviously, you've probably mastered the lead generation and all that as far as contractors and being able to help them. So let's discuss marketing a little bit. What's the best construction marketing strategy in your opinion? What should contractors be doing that they're not doing nearly enough of?
Two things. One thing that really stands out that's going to probably hit a nerve with a lot of people. Number one issue we see in marketing, period, with contractors is not answering the phone. Oh. So it makes no difference how many leads you generate. It makes no difference how good your online presence is. If you're missing 57% of your phone calls, which by the way is the average of how many phone calls go missed in the construction space from a study that we did, 57%. If you're missing 57% of the phone calls, you're wasting money on marketing. So that's number one. Number two is, I believe that today's marketing in any industry, but most specifically in construction, this is extremely valuable because of how unfamiliar the buyer is with what we do. It's just straight up storytelling and creating a digital online presence that allows you to exist and allows people to get to know you. This podcast is a great thing for you, man, because it allows people to hear not just what you're doing as a company, but how many people are willing to come on your podcast to have a conversation with you. That matters, right? Mm-hmm. The frame of that really does a great job of explaining why somebody should do business with your company versus somebody else. And you get an opportunity to consistently build trust by telling the story of your company over and over and over again. And so I think that in today's world, that storytelling, that ability to be an evangelist for your cause, as Ed Milet says, is more important now than ever. And if you don't get attention built around your company, you're going to lose to somebody that does. We spend, a decent amount of money on advertising on Google, being present on social media. I've got, all of these different digital outlets that I do, this being one of them, being a guest on podcasts, because the key to the future of business is how many people can you be in front of? How many people can you meet? And the frequency at which you can be in front of people matters. And so I think that, contractors, a lot of times the first thing that contractors want to show is their equipment or their jobs or their homes. Those are important pieces, but they are not the focus. The focus is, who am I doing business with? And how do I build trust through a digital platform by telling my own story, by being vulnerable, by talking about the challenges. I've got a customer that wants all these samples. What you're doing by telling that story is you're sharing your own journey and the struggles that you have and how you actually deal with that. Being willing to ask that question of somebody else, man, shows your ability and desire to learn from other people. Mm-hmm. Dude, that's an admirable quality that anybody would want to do business with that person, right? And so when you think about that, as you put yourself out there, and, I say this to the people in Top Contractor School all the time, say, Bill, you might be the nicest guy in the world, but if you're not online showing people and you're not present online, the only people that know are your wife and your neighbor. And it's the truth. When you are a construction company, people don't, they look for things to read that are entertaining or that are, something, they're not going to go to a construction website to read, but they will listen to Bill talking about his business because this is an interesting conversation to a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. And so as you do that, as you create presence and as you continue to tell your story and you let people inside of your business a little bit, think of it as, kind of your own little reality TV show, right? You have the ability through these phones that we carry around every day to really create your own story effortlessly, right? To just let people into what you're doing and share the story of why you do what you do, what you're going to do when you make it, when you have Money, how are you going to make an impact in the community? How are you going to use that? How are you helping other people? What other builders do you collaborate with? All that stuff matters to people because it builds trust. They actually get to know the real person. So to sum it up, man, I think it's, telling your story, being an evangelist for your cause, being present, and frequency and message, right? What is your message and how frequently are you sharing it is really the key to everything. And then once you have all of that down, having a place like, for us, I've learned a lot about websites and how that all works. And the conversion of that is having a place that you refer people to that allows them to share their information and connect with your company so that you can have a real life conversation on the backside, right? And that's the whole puzzle. That's the everything that we do is about frequency, telling the story, educating people, giving them as much value as we possibly can so that they look at our companies as the preferred choice or the only choice to do business with.
Your answer obviously is unbelievable, and it's so 1,000% correct. And the problem is, though, too, is there's a lot of builders not willing to get behind the camera, or a lot of builders not willing to get behind a microphone and take the time to do it because they say, I don't have time, or they're just not comfortable doing it. When
I don't have time is nothing but an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And you find time. That's the thing. I mean, I edit all my stuff. I do video. That's what I'm doing at night. I'd rather edit than watch TV because all the crap on TV these days just aggravates you. I'll put sports on in the background. That's about it. But you're so 1,000% correct, because when I started doing video, more people realized who we are as a company. They started seeing our projects, and I'm seeing throughout, and I don't even realize all the people talking about us on social media and stuff, but they see my content and they say, well, you got to call Bill, you got to call Bill, you got to call Bill, watch this video on this, listen to the podcast, and it's working. 100 and something episodes of this podcast in, I had a customer tell me she listens all the time. I had no clue. She's like, oh, I love your podcast. It's so great. And I'm like, wow, all right. You're one of those people that listens. That's awesome. She's like, yeah, there's so much great. And she trusts me too. She's like, oh, all the stuff you say and everything, it makes, it just all makes sense. And all the great people you've had on. But even the video thing, like just doing walkthroughs through our homes that we're doing, people are so interested in that. Maybe it's not as interesting to me because, we're always on a job site. We see it constantly every single year after year, building multiple houses. But to these people, they're just like, so that's how this is done. That makes sense now. Okay, now I get, and it helps actually for arguments too, like they see how the process goes and why it's taking the time it does through those videos. Yeah. It helps big time.
Yeah. No question, man. And what you said, I want to point something out that you said there. That one customer, my coach advisor, and I just had this conversation last week. He said, however many people you think are watching or how many people you think are listening, there's way more.
Yeah.
Because think about it, man, however many downloads this podcast gets, those are real people, man. And those people tell other people about you. And so the impact of it, and I think in today's world, a lot of people get obsessed over the vanity metrics, I call them, like the social media, how many likes or how many downloads or how many, those are real people, man. And those are people that are taking their time out of their day to listen to you, to listen to your podcast, to listen to your message. And not only are they listening, man, but you're having an impact on their life. That's a big deal, right? And so we shouldn't shortchange the value of educating people, the value of sharing knowledge, the value of, repeating the message of our company, man. It's what we built with our own two hands, right? And if we're not proud enough to put it out there, that's an issue to me, right? And I believe, you said a lot of builders aren't willing to get behind the camera or in front of the camera or behind the microphone. And here's a message for them, man. If you're not willing to, you're either going to get bought out or go out of business eventually, because it's going to become a non-negotiable. Like you will have such a small business, your business will continue to decline because those people who are out in front and trusted are the ones that are going to get all the business.
I'm literally probably from what I know, out of my knowledge, I'm probably the only builder getting behind a camera and doing walkthroughs talking about our stuff in this general area. they do videos about their houses when it's done. You got the motions through the rooms and the music playing, but nobody actually gets in front of the camera and starts a discussion talking. There might be some in Naples. Marco, I know I'm the only one. Naples, there may be a few, but it's rare too. So I'm just going to keep on doing it. And that's the thing to get it. Anybody that's listening, if you are in construction, just do it. Stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking. Brian does it constantly for his business. There's a lot of people I've had on this show that do it. You just have to pick up the camera and do it. And what better camera now than these things? Because I actually bought a camera and then I tried using this camera. This camera is better than the camera I bought. So,
by the way, do you have the wireless microphone that plugs into the phone?
I need the wireless one. I have a wire. Yeah, I need one of those.
It's Bluetooth, man. So you can have the phone, 100 feet away.
You might need to send me that link after this.
I'll send it to you. I'll put it in the chat here.
For sure. Last thing, let's wrap this up a little bit because I know you got to get going. I always ask the personal questions. These are important. This is my favorite question. It's pretty powerful. So what about you personally? You have built an amazing company and coaching program that continues to grow every single day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we can all apply to our own business or lives that will help us grow?
Yeah, great question, man. And I think about this all the time, and I'm sure you will feel exactly the same way as I do. But dream bigger, man. Dream bigger, and don't be afraid of what that looks like to step into, what God has planted in you to be great. I am a believer, man, that we are all here to make a massive impact and to do something great with the time that we have here. And, for me, when I look back in my career, there's a lot of governors that are put on our lives by the things that we experience or the things that we hear. Maybe sometimes the things that we're taught as kids. I'm very careful with my wife to make sure that the words that we use with our children are correct. Never saying to them, we can't afford that, using that as an excuse of why to buy something, because I think that for children, they hear those things and it programs them into a scarcity mindset. And I think that as I've grown as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a father, what I've realized is that I've sold myself way short in a lot of ways in life. And I'm working on that every day to be able to really expand my thinking to what really God has in store for my life, and be able to step into that. And it's scary, man. It takes some time to develop that skill.
Powerful.
But I think it's so important for us to realize that we were put here to do something really special. And I think a lot of people, they cover that up because of the fear of what that means. There's a lot of challenging things that come along with, stepping into that greatness that we have. And it can be intimidating. It can be something that you look at and say, like, maybe this is good enough. And don't ever let yourself talk yourself into good enough being good enough.
That's powerful. And I agree. I mean, I've agreed with you this whole episode here, man. We click a lot on a lot of different things. And one of them is that, God put us on this earth for a reason. I'm a big believer in that. I actually have it tattooed on my arm. Have patience. God isn't finished, or God isn't done yet. Because I really truly believe that, the sky's the limit. We were created in his image, and we can do anything that we put our mind to 100%. And not a lot of people are willing to do it because there's a lot of distractions on the way. And that's what this earth has been created to do, is distract us from getting to our true potential too. So definitely love that, man. And no doubt about it, you're going to keep growing, and the company's going to keep growing, and same with the Contractor School and everything. Another question, getting to the end here, where will we see Brian Hess in 5-10 years from now? Who will he be?
Man, I'm hoping I can get in one of those spaceships like the other cool guys that are flying outer space. Yeah, that's a question, man, that I always have a tough time answering because I am a big believer in, obviously long-term goals. But what I've found a lot, and it goes back to the answer of my last question, I've found a lot that my long-term goals were not even close to big enough. I have a vision board in my office at home. And I was sitting there with my advisor going through some stuff last weekend in my office at home. And we looked over at it, and everything on that board is either happening or has already happened. And I made that board 2 years ago. And so I'm careful about, thinking too far out, because I really believe, dude, that we can put that governor on our own lives by thinking too far ahead. With that said, we have growth goals at the payment group. We want to be in 15 cities across the next handful of years here, just kind of popping up local businesses to partner with our national presence. We've got 3 cities that we're in right now, and then we've got employees that work remotely all over the country, right? And so our goal is to, kind of get into those local markets and be able to make an impact there. I have some massive goals for Top Contractor School. I really believe that, the events that we're doing, the content that we're delivering, and the education that we continue to expand, and we continue to bring in new versions of construction, right? So now we've got general contractors, roofers, excavation companies, paving companies. I'm probably missing something, HVAC, plumbing, like all these different types of companies, landscapers. As these people come into Top Contractor School, it really builds the community to another level. And I just believe, man, that what's going on in the construction industry from an education standpoint and from a community standpoint, I believe that we can change that in a massive way that really makes people see the next generation of construction very clearly. And so a lot of goals there. I believe there'll be thousands of people that are coming to our events and part of our programs, and really, utilizing our community to take their businesses, their families, their lives to the next level. And with Lead Revenue, man, our mission is to help as many companies as we possibly can be able to do what I just described, to be able to step into those things, have that digital presence that's required for the next step in their businesses. And, for me, it's changed my business. So that's why I believe in it so much. It's why I became a partner in the business. It has really unlocked our ability to reach people that we weren't able to reach without picking up the phone and calling them. And, so with that, we're going to, we already have hundreds of contractors that we work with. And so the next sensible step is thousands, right? To make that impact for thousands of people and really show them how simple digital is. And then, from a family standpoint, man, I just, want to continue to educate our kids and pour into them and make sure that they're prepared to be world changers and game changers themselves when it's their time. Our oldest is 8. So I feel like, I got such a short period of time to pour into them and make an impact and build that foundation to make them successful human beings and do my part as a father, and for my wife and I to do our part as parents. And that's it, man. And I'll continue to, seek God every single day and, find out what exactly it is that he has in store for me, and try to work towards that and try to impact as many people, hopefully millions and millions of people over the next handful of years here.
I love it. No doubt you're going to do it. Like I already said, man, there's no doubt. And I can see the Top Contractor School getting pretty big too, especially with what we've spoke about today as well. Last question. That's what this show is all about. What exactly do people need to look for when choosing a contractor, and why should they choose Brian Hess as their go-to pavement contractor / coach / Lead Revenue? Why Brian Hess?
Yeah, I think the answer is you should look for somebody that you can trust, somebody that presents a transparent process to you, that allows you to see exactly what they're doing, that welcomes you into their process, welcomes you into their company. And really just, again, I think the word is trust, man, because it's simple. It's like, you know, if you trust somebody, right? If you have that feeling like, this is the right guy. And I think, for you, when you talk about your business and just how people interact with you and a customer wanting to see your dog, that is trust by the true definition of it. It's like, that's a real relationship. And I think that, for people, and if that's not our company, then it's not our company, but that is the key to selecting a contractor. Mm-hmm. Why I believe you should select our company is because we have a better process of building that trust and building that transparency than anybody in the industry. We're going to guide you to the right solution. And you're going to know that because we actually show you. We don't just tell you. And we make you part of that process. That combined control is where it's at. From the coaching side of things, man, I really believe, again, that people should choose the person that they most connect with, because that is such an important piece. Knowledge is only a small fraction of what it really takes to be successful with a coach. You have to share the same values. You have to believe in the destination that person is taking you to or trying to help guide you to. And if you don't align with that, then you should find somebody that you do align with. But from our standpoint, the biggest thing I can say about Top Contractor School is it's not about me. It's about the community that we've built and the passion that those people have for helping each other. I believe that the content that we have is forward thinking. It's innovative. It's everything that I believe contractors are missing a lot of times. But also it comes with the most incredible group of people that I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. And, when we had our event in Fort Lauderdale, the guests that we had, the speakers that we had all said it. It was a unique group of people that really had a different level of energy and passion about not just learning, but helping each other. And, from the standpoint of on the digital side, I believe we do have an unparalleled playbook that has produced results for every one of our customers. We put people in the position to win, and we make it simple. And that's what it's all about, and we have the ability, and I am the proof in the pudding, because I am the person that's acting out what we actually guide people to do every single day. And those results, I believe, speak for themselves. So hopefully that answers all your questions.
Definitely did, man. This has been awesome. And I'm probably going to have you come on again, because I think we hit probably like 3 of the show notes I sent you. So, because it's such a good conversation too. And there's so many topics you and I can talk about. But I really do appreciate your time today too. Obviously, I want people to connect with you. Where can people find and connect with you?
Yeah. So any social platform, it's Real Brian Hess. So RealBrianHess on any of the platforms. And then Top Contractor School, Lead Revenue, and the Pavement Group are just those names, just as they sound, or the handles. So you guys can connect with me anywhere there. RealBrianHess.com is the website. I'm pretty easy to find. If anybody wants to connect, they should be able to find me.
What's
easy.
The podcast too?
The Perspective Podcast. Yeah, the Perspective Podcast. If you type it in, you have to type in the Perspective Podcast. Brian Hess makes it easy to find. We're on episode 370 something there, and still cracking it. And I've got some incredible interviews with people coming up here in the next month. Those will be launched, called Powerful Perspective. So nice. High-flying entrepreneurs, successful business people, and superhumans that I am blessed to call friends in many cases. And, interviewing those people and really showing people how the way that you look at life, the way that you look at things in general, your own perspective is the power that you need to take your life to whatever level you want.
Love it. Yeah, Brian, like I said, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time today and you coming on.
Dude, my pleasure, man. This has been awesome. I feel like we know each other a whole lot better after this conversation. And I definitely feel like there's a massive amount of alignment, man. So I look forward to seeing what we can do together and how we can help more people in the construction industry.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I really do appreciate you. And we'll definitely have to link up on something here in the future. Obviously,
yeah, man, I'm available anytime. You need the second round of this podcast, just let me know.
Oh, we're probably gonna have to, because like I said, we barely we touched on a lot, and like I said, we probably could have went all day too, but we don't have all day being in the construction business, as you know. So
no doubt.
But with that being said, thanks guys for listening. Obviously, I don't ask for anything. I don't advertise on this show. All I ask is that you share it with your friends and family. And on iTunes, 5 stars only. That's all I accept. And I will see you all on the next episode.